This Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial has really taken the nation by storm. If you look at the search terms in terms of like what is most searched for on Google in terms of news stories, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard just blows everything else out of the water over the course of the last few weeks. Joining us to discuss is Christopher Melcher, partner at Walzer, Melcher and Yoda LLP, and he covers issues like this on a wide variety of bases. Christopher, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Ben.
So let's talk about the basis of the trial in the first place. For those who have not really been watching the trial, this would include me, why don't you explain why this trial is taking place and what exactly is being tried?
This is a case for defamation. Amber Heard made a statement in the Washington Post, an opinion editorial piece, saying that she was a survivor of an abusive relationship that included sexual violence and that she faced the backlash of Hollywood when she came out and spoke against this powerful person, referring to her marriage to Johnny Depp and seeking a restraining order against him after their marriage ended. Johnny says that that's defamatory against him, and so is suing her for loss of roles and income that he suffered allegedly as a result of that. Amber Heard then says that Johnny's attorney had called her allegations false in the media, and she says that that allegation was false and that she lost roles and income as a result, so she's countersuing him for it, and it's all happening in the court in Virginia because that's where the Washington Post had published its story.
So it seems like a bit of a mess. So let's take this kind of one issue at a time. First, the case in favor of Johnny Depp, does that rely on him never having abused Amber Heard and her claiming that he had? What exactly does he have to prove here?
Well, so he has to establish that this statement is about him, which she's now acknowledged it was, and that it's false. And that's a hard one because we've heard audio of them mistreating each other during the relationship. But he has to establish that, no, he didn't commit certainly the sexual violence against her, and that he was the victim of most of that abuse and she was the aggressor. So if he can get past that point, he can show falsity because she portrayed herself in the light of a victim when in fact she was an aggressor under his allegation. And then finally, since he's a public figure, to establish that she did this with actual malice, which means a hateful state of mind or in reckless disregard for the truth. And if he can establish that, plus that he lost roles or income as a result of those statements, then he would win.
So let's talk about what the evidence has shown thus far. So we've heard a lot of tape. We've had a lot of witness testimony. So what exactly is on the tape? It's kind of unclear. I mean, on some of the tape, you can hear her admitting to having hit him. But is there anything on any of the tapes that actually shows him committing acts of violence against her? Or is it mainly her just shouting at him that he has committed acts of violence and him not rebutting it? What does the actual taped evidence show?
So it's really odd, Ben, that they were tape recording each other during this relationship. So this was a toxic relationship for sure. And they decided to start tape recording each other during these fights. And so in these tape recordings, it does show mostly Amber as the aggressor, that she's pursuing arguments with him and that Johnny is saying, look, I don't want to have this argument. And he's actually retreated times to the bathroom and she would pursue him. So she's very angry and hostile, showing herself as the aggressor. He has said unkind things, certainly in response, and she has admitted on tape to hitting him, but now claims that it was in self-defense.
So what is the physical evidence in the case? Because we've all seen the picture of Johnny Depp's finger injured. We've seen her post pictures of herself with a supposedly bruised face, although you really can't see the bruise in the picture per se. So what does the physical evidence in this case look like?
So in Australia, Johnny says that Amber Heard, threw a vodka bottle at him from across the room and struck his hand and severed the tip of his finger. So the tip of his finger certainly came off, but she says he somehow did that to himself. But we've heard medical evidence that the injury is consistent with the way he claims it. And if he had punched the wall, for example, the tip of his finger would have been protected. So we have evidence of pretty horrific physical injury that he claims was suffered by her. She has now come forward with all these photos of bruises of her, but there's expert testimony that those images have been manipulated, that they were shot on an iPhone, but then went through a photo editor with some processing. She also went to court in 2016 after calling the media, and TMZ had confirmed that they were tipped off that she was going there, and she walks out this public entrance with a big bruise or shiner on her face, but then she's photographed the next day with no bruise. There's a lot of inconsistencies in that physical evidence.
We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, if you think that Amber Heard is laying it on a bit thick, let me tell you about something you should lay on really thick because it's great for you. I'm talking, of course, about Tessa May's. Everyone knows no barbecue is complete without the right sauces and dressings. Make sure you are fully stocked this summer with Tessa May's amazing selection of dressings and dipping sauces. Tessa May's is an American-made company started by 3 brothers with a dream to share their mom's recipes with the world. Tessa May's puts flavor and quality above all else. Because of that, they quickly became the #1 organic dressing brand in the country. All of their products are manufactured right here in the United States. They have a wide variety of kosher products. Yes, like their avocado ranch and lemon garlic dressing and marinade. We use these in our home all the time. They also just released a brand new vegan ranch you just have to try. Kids, parents, grandparents, they can all agree on one thing. Tessa May's dressings are good on everything. From dipping wings in pizza to pouring it over a fresh salad, Tessa May's makes every single meal better. We love Tessa May's at the Shapiro household. You will too. These guys are the embodiment of the American dream. They're bringing manufacturing back to America. Their products are the best. Go to TessaMays.com. Use promo code BEN for 15% off all of their amazing products. That's TessaMays.com. Promo code BEN. Again, I don't even like salad. Tessa May's makes salad taste good. If there's a product that makes salad taste good, that's how good that product is. TessaMays.com. Use promo code BEN for 15% off. When it comes to the witness testimony, we've heard friends of Johnny's testify. We've heard friends of and family members of Amber testify. What's the witness testimony been with regard to the abuse?
So we have a collection of people that were living with Johnny that were friends of Amber. And so they've mostly gone along lines of Amber, that they're remain friends or friendly with her mostly. And so they've testified that Johnny was the scary one. Amber's sister testified that Johnny had tried to hurt Amber on the stairwell incident, and that's why Amber punched Johnny to protect the sister. But we also have inconsistent testimony from others that say, no, the security guard for Johnny was there at the stairwell incident and said, no, it was Amber attacking Johnny, and the sister got between the two of them, and Amber punched Johnny in the face. So it's really a big he said, she said case with very few witnesses to the actual incidents of abuse.
One of the big incidents of at least controversy that came up was this story that Johnny's team was pushing, that Amber had apparently left a present in his bed for him in the form of human feces. What was that admitted to? What was her claim on this?
So it's so disgusting, but when she left for her birthday celebration to go to Coachella, that there were feces on the pillow in his bed, and the security guard and driver that took her to Coachella testified that Amber admitted to doing that as a horrible practical joke that went wrong. Amber says, no, I never said that. And it was the dog that had some incontinence problems that did it. But we're also talking about a little tiny terrier that probably couldn't even jump on the bed and certainly couldn't produce something of that magnitude. So it's just unbelievable, honestly, what both parties have done and said to each other. It's really abnormal behavior, but this one is really strange. And it shows something just wrong with this person.
So let's talk about the actual testimony of Johnny versus Amber. So what's been your impression of their sort of affect on the stand? We've shown some footage on the show of Johnny testifying. He just seems like somebody who is sort of a shell of what he formerly was. Amber, frankly, to me, just as sort of a observer, not somebody who's an expert in these allegations, she just does not look credible to me. She looks like she's constantly turning to the jury and almost reading lines that she thinks that she's made up. But what's been your impression?
Yeah, I was surprised when Johnny started testifying because we've seen him in the movies and we've kind of just figure, well, that's the way he talks, but he doesn't. And it was very slow and kind of tortured the rhythm of his speech. I had to watch it on, 1.5 speed, sometimes 2 speed, just to hear normal speech pattern. And he explained that that's the way he talks. He stuttered as a child and he had to learn to overcome that. And so we're kind of seeing him coming in natural and not as the actor. And he said, this is me. I'm not the actor here right now. So that kind of showed some authenticity or that he wasn't faking. Amber is very articulate. She's very smart. But yes, she does look at the jury, which is a little bit weird when she's addressing her comments. And the demeanor, her body language when she's testifying about events that are very difficult for most people to ever talk about, her facial expressions just don't match the words that are coming out of her mouth. And maybe that's just the way she, projects, but it seems jarring. It seems off.
So let's talk about the performance of the legal teams thus far. So there's been a lot of focus on the shortcomings, supposedly, of Amber's legal team versus Johnny's legal team. What's your assessment as a lawyer?
Well, it's a hard job going through a trial so long, so I try not to criticize so much. But certainly there's been mistakes, I think, on both sides. I think with Amber's side, the problem is that they never got her to take responsibility is the biggest legal error that I could see. That she needed to come in and just admit that she had done things wrong, and then that would have built credibility. With Johnny's side, initially I thought that they should have coached him better to answer some of these questions rather than these long rambling responses. But maybe he resisted doing that because he didn't want to be coached.
So let's talk about where you think this trial is going to end up, because supposedly it's going to end this week. It's going to go to a jury. It seems like the allegation, the baseline allegation she's making that she's lost work is obviously not true. I mean, I just don't see how she can argue that she's lost any work when she has continued to star in these Aquaman films, in which, by the way, she's eminently replaceable. I mean, she's a secondary character in those films. She is not Jason Momoa in those films. She appears for some screen time, but she's certainly not like the big star of the films, and she continues to appear in those films. Johnny Depp's career has obviously been on the skids for the last several years. I mean, it seems like his case that he's having a hard time getting work, that seems fairly substantiated just by his IMDb. What's your impression?
Sure. So we are going to hear from this jury, but I don't know if it even matters to Johnny at this point because he's already won in the court of public opinion. And I got to think that that's mostly what this case is about. There, like you mentioned at the beginning, there is tremendous interest in the story, and it's almost universally positive to Johnny and negative to Amber. So I think he gets his career back on track just fine, no matter what happens. In terms of predicting the outcome, one might be the jury says you both go home. Both of you acted improperly, and you shouldn't be here today. Another outcome could potentially be, yeah, Johnny, Amber lied about you, but your career had problems because of your own conduct. You were, late to sets, you were using drugs, or maybe just Hollywood didn't need him at that point. And so no damages.
Well, that's Christopher Melcher, partner at Walser Melcher and Yoda LLP. Really appreciate your time and your insight. That does provide a ton of clarity. So really, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.
I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.